So in this video, I'm going to be talking about a movie that a lot of people liked, a lot of people disliked, and overall I'm a fan of it. It is The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. I'm sure you knew by the title, but yeah, I'm really excited to review this movie. I will review the other two movies in the trilogy down the line, probably sometime in the next 2 weeks or so. But yeah, let's get right into this. So first off, starting off with the cons, there are a lot of people who have a lot of cons with this movie. A lot of the flaws with this movie, I see them, but they don't affect me nearly as much as other people do. I think my issues with the movie conclude that you could tell it has a much higher budget than Lord of the Rings, and a lot of the budget was spent on special effects that just don't look as good as the originals in some area, but also look better in other areas. They leaned into special effects in some areas where it just looked better practical when they didn't have the ability to use special effects. And then I just feel like, overall, it's just not as good as Lord of the Rings. I mean, almost everything just feels like Lord of the Rings, but a little bit worse. That doesn't make it bad. It's still a really good movie. It's just not Lord of the Rings, and when at times it's trying to be. So that's a bit of an issue. And then, it's kind of perception, it's interpretation of Thorin. I mean, he gets better as the movies go on, but during the first 2/3 of the movie, Thorin is pretty borderline unlikable. He seems very harsh and cold to everybody, even the dwarves. And he's just an outright jerk to Bilbo in the third act until that final scene. But yeah, Thorin, they don't really do a lot to make you like Thorin. And he just is kind of annoying. There definitely are some solid character traits in there, but none of them are enough to make it be like, oh, I can say like, oh, I like Thorin. Thorin's a cool character. But maybe in the further movies in my rewatch, I'll grow to like him more. But then on to the pros. First off, this is a really, really fun movie. It's got this great adventure vibe. It's a fun going back into Middle-earth and seeing all these cool characters again. One thing I liked about this trilogy is obviously with The Hobbit, that's not a book you can make into one movie. So they did make the ability to stretch it out into a trilogy. But of course, with a trilogy based on one book, you're going to have some free space. And while movies 2 and 3, I'm not sure they make the best choices with kind of the new space that they have to fill with new stuff. But I think this movie does a great job with that, because with kind of the space it has by, stretching it into the trilogy, this movie adds in more tie-ins to Lord of the Rings that makes sense in context of, Tolkien's lore, and doesn't feel like it's adding too much, but kind of does tie in the two movie trilogies a lot better. Because in the original Hobbit book, there's a few tie-ins, but it's mostly up to Lord of the Rings to tie the gap back to the Hobbit. But in these movie trilogies, The Hobbit does lead right into Lord of the Rings in several aspects, which I really like. Another thing I love is Martin Freeman and his interpretation of Bilbo Baggins. He is just a great job as the character, kind of as he grows from someone who he wants to stay home. He loves being a hobbit, but you can kind of tell he wants to go off an adventure, and I love as he becomes kind of more sure of himself, more confident around the dwarves, and more brave as the movie goes on. As the trilogy goes on in the whole, Bilbo Baggins is definitely the best character in the trilogy, rivaled only by who's coming up next, Gandalf. Gandalf is almost exactly like he is in Fellowship of the Ring, just as great, just as wise, just as kind of friendly to everyone. It's just good to see him again. I did like the return of plenty of Lord of the Rings characters like Elrond, Galadriel, Saruman. It's fun seeing them all again. It's great seeing Gollum again. I did really like that whole Riddles in the Dark scene, although at times I do feel like Gollum was a little too kind of childish in a few terms. I do like, they did make him still menacing, and that was fun. I liked the riddle scene between him and Bilbo. And then a lot of the action scenes are really good. I love they give all the dwarves kind of very diverse appearances and kind of distinct character traits for each one of them, where one of them doesn't talk, another one always has to hold up a hearing aid, kind of like little things like that to make the dwarves more diverse. I really do like Balin. I kind of like how they make him kind of like a more friendly dwarf to Bilbo. He's kind of an older and wiser one. And then I do like the flashbacks, and then the character of Azog, I like him, as in kind of he gives Thorin a rival, an old nemesis, but his CGI doesn't look too great, especially considering all the makeup orcs in the old movies. But overall, I'm still okay with Azog, and most of the other orcs are still practical effects anyway. It's fun seeing new characters and new aspects. I absolutely love the music for this movie. Overall, it's just a fun time, even if it's not as good as Lord of the Rings. I love how it ties into those movies, and I like a lot of the new characters and old characters alike. The Hobbit and Unexpected Journey. I've always been a good defender of this movie. I think the writing and the characters in the world are all great. So I would give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. I really, really enjoyed it. I hope you do too. I'm excited to talk more about the trilogy. So, hope you liked the video, and I'll see you maybe next week, maybe in a few days. I don't know. Goodbye.